Hi everyone, and in this we're going to take a look at the new On1 RAW software. Been a long time waiting for this, and I'm really looking forward to see what it can do, and I'm sure many others are as well. There's been a lot of talk about the software, and I have had a quick play with this program, and I must admit it's looking good. This is a pre-release, so there are a lot of bugs and a few things missing at the moment. The final release will be due in December, just before Christmas time. So let's just have a quick look at what it does and what it's all about. So first of all, we're in the browse section. Now if you look at the right hand side of the screen, we've got some buttons here, some icons. You've got the browse, the develop, the effects, layers and resize. Now the nice thing about this software is it's a raw editor, so for converting your raw files, but it's much more than that, and everything is contained within this workplace. So you've got the browse facility, you can browse, you can catalogue your files, you can add albums, create albums, search for files, filter in different ways for files. So that's the browse side. Then you've got the develop side, so you can switch from the browser to the development tool, all in the same contained window. And then you can develop using the raw control, which we'll be looking at in a moment, the develop part of the program. Then you can add effects without going out the program. Everything is contained within, and you can go to all these different things and switch back to other sections as well. So you've put an effect on and you're not happy with your raw conversion, you can get back to the raw conversion simply by clicking the develop part on the right hand side. Then you can tweak to your heart's content and get exactly what you want. So those are the really good things about the program. So in the browse section on the left hand side, we have your folders section. You've got index folders, and you can drop folders in there to index, so you get an index of particular things that you want to index there. You've got the local drives, so I've got 3 drives at the moment on there. The main one being my Samsung one, which is an external hard disk where I keep my photos. Cloud storage, which is fantastic. You know, not many include your cloud storage, so if you've got Dropbox or Google Drive or OneDrive, you can add those locations as well and be able to access your cloud storage items. Albums is where you can drag and create new albums for your files, to categorize them and to make it easier to find things. You've got filters where you can search for pictures using, you know, different filter selections on this title. We haven't got anything selected yet, so it probably won't do that. And you've got recent files that you've worked on. So I've worked on one file recently, and that's in there, so that would allow me a quick way of getting back to that file. So some nice features on there. Also, when we look at the preview, so at the moment I'm looking at my Samsung drive, and these are the folders on there. You can see where you've got images in there, you've got these little previews, which gives you a good little indication of what's enclosed. I like that touch, it's a nice touch. To open the folder, we double click, and you can see I've got 2 folders in there. This is my spare Mac, so I haven't got all my images in here, but we have got a few. So again, I can see my deer shots are in here, so I'm going to double click that. And this is a day when I went out locally and caught the local red deer. Having a game of rugby on the rugby pitch. You can see there's a few there with rugby posts enclosed. I'm not sure who won the game, but the deer played remarkably well. They even mowed the grass, as you can see along there. Okay, so let's have a look at editing. So I'm going to browse for a file. I'm just going to have a look at one of these because these images here are quite contrasty. Let's just have a look. I've got a few there. I'm going to use, let's look. That's one we've already done, so we'll have a look. We'll have a look at this one. So I'm going to double click that. You can just see a deer coming in there. Now at the moment I couldn't crop that off within this program because the crop tool doesn't work. It hasn't been included yet. So you will have a crop tool on there that does work. We need to switch now from the actual view in the browse to the develop part of the section. So when we click on develop, we now get all the sliders to control our raw file and to alter our raw file. You'll notice on the left hand side now we have got a few tools on there. We've got the crop tool, and I say if we click on that it will say coming soon, so it is not yet available. You've got an adjustment brush, a local gradient shift brush, these do work by the way. We've got a perfect eraser which works very nicely. A retouch brush to retouch certain parts of the picture, and your view actual zoom tool as such. So what I'm going to actually do first before we actually do any editing is just quickly look at one of these tools. So I'm going to look at the, where are we, the magic eraser, the perfect eraser, sorry. So we click on that and basically we get a brush, and the size of the brush can be altered at the top there. So if we look at the top, we've got the size where we can click and drag, but also nicely, the same as in Photoshop, they use the same shortcut keys to resize the brush, which I much prefer to do. So if you look at your return or enter key on your keyboard, to the left of those and to the right of the letter P, you will have your curly brackets, and by pressing the one on the right it will make the brush larger, and the one on the left will make the brush smaller. So what I'm actually going to do is to delete, see if we can delete this deer here on the right hand side that's just creeping onto the frame. So I'm going to drag over this part. We'll just see how good this actually works. I missed a tiny bit there, but not to worry. Now remarkably the deer has gone. There's a little bit there that I don't like, so I'm just going to click there, and that's improved that section. So it works, yeah, it's quite good. Okay, so that's now got the image to start working on my raw file. Yeah, we've got a little bit of haze in the background, and I'm going to get rid of that by bringing down, there is a haze section there, you can bring that down actually, so I'll bring that down a little bit and that will get rid of the haze. Straight away a big improvement. Similar to Lightroom, you've got the exposure, which will up your or down your exposure. One thing that is missing, I don't know if I'll bring in, is actually being able to double click and return it to the value. I'm not sure whether that works. No, it doesn't. So when I double click that, it's not returning to the value, so you do have to drag it or click in there and type in what you actually want. So I'm going to say I want to return back to 0. I can click in there, press the enter key, and that's returned the exposure back to 0. Okay, so we've got a few tweaks there. The highlights, I'm going to drag down slightly, that will add a little bit more detail. The whites will allow me to go and add a little bit more brightness. Being careful I don't lose any detail in the highlights, so I'm just going to bring that down slightly. And straight away you can see that we're getting really good results. So a few other things on there. We've had a look at the exposure, the contrast, the highlights, so you can alter all those, very similar to Lightroom, and work just as well. The structure is probably the same as the clarity. In take the structure up and get more like more effect on there or down, and it softens the picture slightly, so very similar to the clarity. Let's bring that down to 0. Just type it in there, press the enter key. There we go. So in some ways similar to Lightroom. What we are actually looking at now is just the tone and the colour and all the basic, what's called the basic side of things in Lightroom. If we want to see more, you can see we've got a show more button, and I quite like that because I don't want to be looking at everything and it's all clambered down in one place. I want to look at specific things, so I can click on there and let's say, well, now I want to have a look at the actual sharpening. So I'm going to go to sharpen. When you click on that, straight away it puts a default sharpening on it, which is usually a bit too much. It's looking a bit too much on there. I'm not over mad on over sharpening pictures, and I actually use the unsharp mask so we can select the type. That's looking nicer already. Bring the amount down slightly. It's quite a sharp picture anyway. I don't want to overdo it. So that's looking okay. That would be probably one of the last things I'll make the most alterations on, would be the sharpening. Usually do everything else first. Okay, so let's have a look at something else now. Okay, so we've got our raw conversion basically to how we want it. Let's say we wanted to add effects on that. Now I'm quite happy with that. I would actually use that picture as it is, but we'll have a look at the effects. So we can switch directly to effects by just clicking there. And then what we get on the left hand side are presets. So you've got like architecture. It's not really architecture, is it, that we're working with, but these would give these effects to the picture. You can see some of those on there. You can actually go out on that and extend to other previews on there, so it gives you a bigger screen so you can see the effects. So that's basically how that works. I'm going to close that. So I'm not going to use effects, I'm going to use filters, and I'm going to have a look at the HDR look, which is something I quite like in this. It's quite natural looking. So that will come up, and we see again we've got the different views in there. The one I usually like is glow. That gives a nice effect, so I'm going to click on that, and you can see it's really put a bit of life into the picture, but it's not over the top, which is what I quite like about that. Plus we can bring the detail down a little bit, and you get this type of effect, so a blurry effect. And you can see now it's almost going to the type of thing that you get with these topaz glow effects, you know, where we can drag that straight down and get these weird effects. And so it's quite nice that you can do that. It doesn't, we haven't got that ability to do that in Lightroom at all. So I'm going to keep the detail fairly basic. The compression we can lower to get a even more natural type feel to it. But the nice thing about using HDR effects is it brings out a lot of the detail in the shadow. You can control the shadow areas and the highlights. So even with a little effect on there, I'll take the compression down a little bit more, and we alter the highlights. So I'm bringing down the highlights, and I'm getting much more back in this area in the grass there, doing that. You know, probably got a bit too much, but we can got more control in these areas. I can bring the shadows up, but because we got the compression, which can be bringing up as well, we can sort of get a nice balanced tone. You can probably go a little bit too flat in some cases using it, but you have got that complete control over what you actually do with the picture and how much effect you put on there. You've also got an opacity, so on the HDR look you can take the opacity down. It's just like a layer in Photoshop, so down to nothing, or we can drag it up and just put a bit of the effect on. Well, I'm quite liking that. I think that's really nice. So you can see there's a lot of power within this program. Now the beauty of that is once you've applied that, you can always go back to develop. So we click on develop, and you can tweak away to your heart's content. You're not stuck on what you've already done on there. If you say, well, I want to take the blacks down slightly, or you want to put a bit of structure on there, which is probably not advisable because we've just put an HDR effect on there. But you can do all that. You can tweak and come back to things. I could then go back to effects and say, well, I'd like to add another effect. And if you click on the plus on the filters there, I could say, well, I want to put some, let's have a look. I probably wouldn't do anything, but we'll just have a look at the different effects. So we'll say antique. So we put an antique style on there. Warm, cool. You've got the colour there, different effects. So you get these different styles on there. And again, you've got the opacity. So if you didn't want the full effect, you can drag that down and just apply a little bit to that, or whatever. Yeah. Obviously not something I'd like, so I'm going to take that off. But there's lots of different effects on there which are really good. So, and you get those by, I'll just bin that one. So I'll click on the bin there. That will take that away. So you can use all these different ones. So that's the basics of the program. It can be a little bit buggy at the moment. You can get a few crashes here and there. It's still being developed, but what I want to do is for people to try it out, and working with the team, you can actually, if you get something go wrong, you can report to them, and they obviously try to put those things right, and they will be all right when they release the full version later in December. I'm sure everything will really be smooth and working good. They're a fantastic team. They are responding well with the customers. There's a good interaction between the customers and the actual software producers. They're constantly asking people for advice on what they would like in the program, and they're acting on it. People are saying, oh, I would like this to work in this way, and they're going back to the program and actually putting these things in, which is fantastic. So there's lots of updates actually after the release date. In the new year, they're bringing other features in, and when I think you buy that and you go onto their actual site, they have got a list there somewhere of all the developments they're going to include over the year and bring it in at certain stages within the year, and any updates and bugs and fixes along the way. So there's going to be plenty of upgrades to this to make it, I think, one of the best RAW editors out there, and it's a big contender really for Adobe, because I'm an Adobe user. I love Adobe. I use Lightroom. I use Photoshop a lot, so I'm never going to get rid of that. But for the person who doesn't need all the Photoshop side of things, just wants to use effects now and again, or just to do some really good RAW file editing, it's a one-off payment. And that will swing people, I think, towards this program rather than using Lightroom, simply for the fact that people don't want to be paying every year when they're probably not using, the cheapest license is the photography license with the two programs included. You get Lightroom and Photoshop, which I think is great. But for the person who doesn't use Photoshop much, they're not getting a lot out of that. That'd be better paying for a one-off application like this, where they're only paying once, and they've got a really good program that is just as capable, in my eyes, as Lightroom. And some things actually like better. So I love Lightroom. I'm not knocking it. I will still use Lightroom, but I'm really chuffed with what these guys are doing on one, and I'm sure it's going to get better and better as the year goes by. So that's a very quick look at the program and some of the things you can actually do. So we've touched on, the eraser part, the perfect eraser. It's took out the deer, remember, was on the right hand side. It's took that out quite nicely, so it's nice for touching little things up, getting rid of unwanted articles. And the effects are really good on. I've always liked on one for the effects, so the effects are nice. The HDR ones I really like. I don't think that they're too much over the top. You've got full control over what you want. You've got the opacity of layers that you can alter on all the effects that you put on there, just to mix and merge them together. And there's also masking tools. I haven't got onto that part, but you can mask out areas quite easily using the mask brushes on there. Just do that actually. If we have a look, let's go to develop. One thing I haven't touched on is we apply the develop, the tone and whatever, so we put on there, and that is applying to the overall settings. Now in Lightroom there is a local adjustment tools, but I really don't like it. I don't like the brushes that much, and I'm not keen on the way it works, but I'm really happy with this one. And if we go to the local adjustments on here, what we then get are various things that we can do. Let's just say I want to take, probably not a lot I would actually do on this image, but just to show you what it would do, let's put the exposure up, and that won't do anything to the image until I actually brush it on. So you'll see there's tools on the left hand side. We've got a brush, an adjustment brush, we've got a gradient brush, so we could affect the gradient on there, and we've got the other tools which are standard all the way through, so we've got these eraser tools and so on. But let's say I just want to make this lighter, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to paint on the deer. You can see I can brighten that area up, and once again, same as in Photoshop, I can make the brush bigger or smaller. So I'm just going to lighten that part there. And when I've done that, I've got full control. I just lighten the leg slightly down there. If you go over like that, you can hold down the Alt key on the keyboard, and that will allow you to paint and delete areas where you've painted. Now what I can do now, I can change the exposure of this to anything that I want, so I can just get it perfectly balanced. So I'll just put that up to 0.3 and just got that little bit more detail, and got rid of the stronger shadow in that area. So we've now got that done. I could also add a brush to that and do other areas. So lots of different adjustments you can do. See, if I click on add layer, what I can then do is say, well, I'll take the exposure down on parts, and I'll use the brush and I'll take down the exposure on these highlights on his ear. A little bit on the antlers there. Okay, and then I can again get any amount that I want on there by using the exposure button on there. The highlights, I can bring those down slightly, give a similar type effect. So lots of control over the whole image. If I didn't like the effects at this stage, I could say, oh, well, I'm going to get rid of those effects. I'll go back to the effects there. Oh, actually we're working on a new layer now, so it won't go back to the effects that I've already applied, I don't think. There we go, overall settings, effects. Yes, we can. There we are. So I'm back now. The HDR, because I was on local adjustments, so I could actually add effects just to a certain part of the picture by doing that. So if I didn't like the HDR effect, I could just click on that and take them off. So you can see I'm not stuck at any stage, or I could simply take down the opacity of that. So I'll bring it down to about there, and now we're looking at something completely different to what we started with. I love the way you can change the actual opacity of your layers and whatever, something you cannot do in Lightroom. Lightroom doesn't have any layer capability whatsoever. So there really is a lot of competition here for Adobe to to come up with something. I don't think they will, because their way of things works basically for the people, especially if you're using Photoshop. You would go over to Photoshop, but there's a lot of people out there, especially people like nature photographers and that, they don't do that much in Photoshop. They just want to basically do the raw conversion, and then now and again put on a few little effects to improve their images in some cases. And you've got all that in this program, where you can do so many different things, and I think it's an amazing program for the price. Okay, so that's a quick look, and as I say, things will improve as we go over to next month and the full version comes in. But it's nice to see a little quick look at what's coming along for the new release. But I nearly forgot to mention, if we just go back to the browse section, it's just retouching that. It looked horrible for the moment. I was a bit worried then. There we go. So if we just come back to this section, something else we can actually do is, if you've got other software and you want to go straight to that software, so you've finished doing your development part of the stage and you want to go to File, and you can see that I can send it to any of the programs that I've got on here. Basically, I can send it to Adobe Lightroom, Photoshop Elements, and all these other programs that I've got. Or if there was a program that wasn't listed, I could click on Send to Other Application, and that would, by clicking on that, send it straight to whatever you want to send your image to. And what it will also do is give you the chance to apply the effects or to take the effects off and go back to the original file when you do so. So that's fantastic. You can integrate this program with all your other programs that you also own from a graphic medium, and apply different things after you've got past this first stage. So that's really handy for a lot of people. Brilliant. Well, what else can I say? Love it. Okay, that's all from me.